podcasting from somewhere with protein shakes and no yearly membership fees. This is the HeroFit Podcast, the show that talks about the ins and outs of fitness, nutrition, and anything else that might get you feeling like a hero. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your hosts, Nick Stutzman and Dan Weber.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into the HeroFit Podcast. If you've listened to past episodes, you may have noticed we like to learn from different experts and experiment with different workouts and diets to see what works for us, and to help you find things that might work for you. Today we're going to do a review of some exercises and workout ideas that we've been playing with this past year from a sampling of our favorite experts. This podcast will be even more useful for you if you visit the accompanying page on our website, which will have videos and links. The web address for that page is herofitpodcast.com/episode/recent influences. Or just go to herofitpodcast.com and browse through our episodes. You'll find it very easily. All right, Nick, so let's get started here.
Let us get started, Dan.
And
our first contestant in
yes.
the What is the Experts That We Prefer list
is
Coach Lee Boyce.
Yes, from Toronto.
Tall guy. I
Indeed.
like him.
Used to be a sprinter, I think. He likes to emphasize sprinting at least, which I appreciate. Definitely a great follow if you're a tall lifter or if you have long limbs, because he'll talk about some of the things you got to look out for if you're in that position. And just an overall real smart guy, very practical, actionable advice. I also like that he takes a lot of exercises and adds his own spin that I think improves them. So he's constantly tweaking things to make it better and drive the industry forward.
Yeah, and I think, and to kind of go further with that point too, is I like what he does as far as he recognizes that not every person has the same body type, such as he's a tall guy or they're short people or whatever, and so I think he kind of creates, or at least showcases these different types of exercises that kind of go along those lines. So if you're not able to deadlift or you're not able to do rows efficiently, here's a more practical way of doing it. And I think that that's kind of what's cool, or even kind of showing you an exercise and, like you said, putting a different spin on it and making it engage with different other types of muscles at the same time.
Yeah, which brings us into one of the exercises we noticed on Instagram, this one in particular. So he was playing around with Chinese planks, showing people what a Chinese plank is, then giving different movements off of that. And so one that we wanted to touch on now, we'll have a link to on the website, but we did an Instagram post where we tried it out. Chinese plank, where you set it up, you got your feet on the bench and then your upper back on another bench. So you're in between two benches planking. And with this one, it was adding in a pullover. So you have some anti-extension and...
So you're working on the core with the plank.
Yes.
You're working on your tries and your lats with the pullover. And, it was definitely something that you're really kind of trying to do multiple things at once. So it's kind of an advanced movement. But we thought it was kind of cool to try because we were both into, experimental mode at that time at the gym. And so this was probably one of our first videos that we really tried to kind of experiment with and try to do a different type of exercise for ourselves and see how it worked out. And it took a couple tries, but I think we kind of, as we progressed, we kind of nailed it.
Yeah, and so we'll put a link to that. But it's great exercise, I think, for your core. And then if you keep the weight light and just focus on a lot of time under tension, it can also be a good upper body builder. And I also want to just add that I know that he gave a shout out to Dr. Joel Seidman as someone who turned him on to the Chinese plank, but then he kind of took it and ran with it and, started showing different movements. He had dumbbell presses off of it as well.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's definitely different things you can do from the Chinese plank, but not only that, check out what Lee Boyce there had. And
then we'll stick to Instagram for now. So on his Instagram presence, he also had a post recently about Fisherman Rows. And so a fisherman row it's like, try to imagine you're on a boat and you're pulling the anchor out of the water, or pulling a fish out of the water, something like that. And he's kind of recreating that movement.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
He's creating that movement for you, but within the gym setting. So you got both your legs up on the bench and one arm on the bench, and then you're rowing the dumbbell from in front of the bench, obviously up, and you're kind of twisting your arm.
Putting that hand in the pocket.
Yeah. And it's just a way to do a dumbbell row that sort of forces you into the proper movement. So if you set up properly, you can't really butcher it. At least I think that's the logic.
And I believe part of the caption he had put into that as well was, this was for those people who typically pull across with their rows anyways. And so that kind of helps with that as you're, if you're not able to kind of escape that cue, here's the Fisherman Row to kind of accentuate that a little bit more.
Yes, if you want a good upper back builder,
rows,
we'll encourage you to check that out on the site.
Yeah.
Which kind of ties us into the next thing that we saw that he did recently that we appreciated. And Nick paid more attention to this than I did, but he has a YouTube video with T Nation where he was troubleshooting the bench press and the dumbbell row with Dani Shugart.
And we'll talk about the bench press in a little bit later with one of our other experts that we were going to touch on. But the rows aspect of it there is the cue is just, wide stance. The leg that's not on the bench is out wide. You're going out forward as far as you can, kind of in a half moon motion in the beginning. So you're pulling from the front and you're bringing it all the way back, and you're really giving your shoulder, getting it all the way down and bringing it all the way back into that pocket, putting the weight into your pocket. And that's really, you're really getting the full range of motion. You're getting the back, and the lats, which are huge. And that's because that's really, in my opinion, the most important part of a row and why rows are so successful in working out.
The other thing he pointed out, I remember, was kind of raising up the bench a little bit. So you got your knee on the bench, and then instead of your hand being at the same level, it's up a little bit, and then keeping your chest up. So I noticed that was helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. And then kind of looking forward. You want to keep your head up and looking forward, and like I said, definitely getting your shoulder all the way down and all the way up. It's key. I mean, especially for the lat engagement.
So we'll put that video on YouTube. I'm not sure if you want to talk on the bench or not. I don't remember exactly all the cues from that.
Yeah, not yet. I want to wait till I get to a couple more down.
The only other thing to add with the rows is the other thing he mentioned is to extend all the way before you pull back, and that's a cue that we first heard from Dr. John Rusin when we were running through some of the FHT workouts last year, and that's our next influencer we want to talk about.
Yeah, our next expert that we have obviously talked about multiple times before. We specifically mentioned him in Jordan's interview, and it is somebody that we are looking to interview somewhat soon because Dan went and saw him down in New York City.
Yeah, went to the Pain-Free Performance Certification seminar that was in New York City with him. He does them across the country throughout the year. And I felt like I learned a lot, and there's so much more I could learn. A lot of stuff packed into 2 days. I really enjoyed some of the demos, some of the hands-on work that we did with each other, the other people that were there. Learning more about our bodies, our strengths, our weaknesses, things that we can improve on, exercise progressions and regressions depending on what you need. And the big focus, I think, on that seminar was taking us through a good warm-up and assessment, essentially. So if you got the first 5 minutes with your client, getting their body ready for the workout and kind of also figuring out where they are at that day, and really like what they might need to work on or what you might need to avoid when you're looking at their movements and seeing them go through the workout or the warm-up before the workout.
Right.
And you're tailoring the warm-up to the workout. If you're going to focus on the lower body that day, you're going to do some movements there, and you're going to kind of make sure that they have the ability to squat the way you want them to that day and things like that. And
one of the other programs that we tried last year, which is, the name is escaping me, Dan, remind me again.
For who? Oh, his it's called FHT, which stands for
that's it.
Functional Hypertrophy Training. Functional meaning like it will help keep you healthy and moving in a natural way like a human being should move, and training for life. Hypertrophy meaning muscle building, and then obviously training. So the idea of it is build muscle in a sustainable way.
And we tried a couple days of that, but we found ourselves just being in the gym for so long. And it's tough because if you don't have the gym to yourself, you can't always get to some of the exercises, or some of the equipment's not there or whatever. And so this is, even though we really enjoyed the workouts and we were definitely like felt it, especially with some of the volume and work,
it seemed like it was a pretty high volume
working
program.
sets. Yeah. It was
then we got into this. That's when it was right before we started doing this podcast, and we started getting a little busier and experimenting with different types of workouts, as you guys have seen. So I'd like to get back into FHT someday and run it through in its completion. But definitely you need to focus on recovery if you're gonna do that program, I think.
Exactly, because it's definitely hard on. I mean, it's a good hard workout. Those are a lot of warm up, like you had said for the seminar you'd went to see him with. A lot of warm up stuff, which I think, knowing what we know now, we would probably attack it a little bit differently because of our working sets, and stuff like that, and our warm up sets. Because knowing about our body and how we're feeling and stuff like that does play a pivotal part into your workout.
I think if I did it again, I wouldn't be so focused on making sure that I'm progressing in weight every single workout.
Exactly.
But more focused on the
just getting it done,
perceived exertion, which we'll talk about later.
Right, from Harden.
Some of the things we tried out that were influenced by him. I'll start with the Landmine Deadlift, because this might be one of my favorite things that I've picked up this year, and it was based on a post that Dr. Rusin had done. So when I was at the seminar in New York City, we basically determined like deadlifting for me is probably not going to be very efficient, and it might not be the safest thing I could do. I'm going to increase my chance of injury if I do standard deadlift from a bar off the ground. So it's because of mobility. Like, I don't necessarily have the mobility. It might be because I have really long legs and a shorter torso. Like, could be a number of things. But it was based on a test that we did with each other, where we essentially found out what our range of motion is. Because that bar, I mean, it's a very arbitrary number. I think it's 8.5 inches off the ground, the bar, because a 45-pound plate has that much of a
width from the diameter.
And why is that the number? It's because they measured people were using dumbbells back in the day that were like more like round, like heavy round objects. And a lot of guys were falling on the ground, dropping the dumbbell, smashing them on the head. Game over. So they were like, we got to do something about this. They created what you now see as your typical plate that goes on a barbell. And they figured that it should be 8.5 inches because they measured everybody's heads, and nobody had a head that was more than 8 inches in I guess width.
That era. Yeah,
so I was like, all right, this will be safe for people. So that's why that's the number. So why are we going to use that arbitrary number as like everybody needs to have this range of motion when doing a hinge pattern? It's kind of silly. So open up my eyes to that. But anyway, so if you're someone that if you think you may have that as an issue, or maybe you're working into it and trying to increase your range of motion, but you want to start out with something safe, the Landmine Deadlift might be a great thing for you. So you take the double D bar, you put it around the end of the barbell, you're obviously in the landmine position. And I find that it allows me to get a great lower body and upper back exercise that a deadlift would provide without the strain that I experience when I'm doing a traditional deadlift.
Yeah. It's not to be confused with the Landmine row, where you're in the middle of the bar. With the Landmine Deadlift, you're at the end of the bar, and you're placing your grips, and you're facing towards the landmine apparatus, where the Landmine row, you're facing away from the landmine apparatus. So you're facing towards it. You're lifting, from the hinge and from your base, and you can kind of have a standard deadlift attack to it, but you're using that double D grip to definitely, keep it close to your body.
Yeah, and I think because it's going between your legs, you don't have to worry about hitting your shins. And because you have your arms together, it gives you a little bit more range of motion. Plus that, like you said, the double D bar, plus the way the landmine sets up, it gives you a little bit extra space to work with there. So I wanted to touch on that one. We'll put the video on the website so you can see it. And that will also bring us to the next landmine exercise. And this one, I think Nick discovered first and introduced it to us, so I'll let him talk about it.
Yeah, so this is the landmine shoulder press, and is banded landmines, actually.
Right, banded landmine presses.
The idea is for people who like me who can't do the shoulder press without injury because of range of motion and just not being able to get my shoulders all the way back.
Right, you were experiencing some shoulder pain, and you had a shoulder injury you're dealing with, and of course Anna told me that I probably shouldn't do overhead pressing.
Both of us.
Yeah,
we shouldn't do that military press, overhead press for the shoulders. So I was looking for different ways to do that, and coming off hurting myself doing the shoulder press, I discovered these landmines, banded landmines shoulder presses from Dr. Rusin. And you're wrapping your band. It could be a 10-pound resistance, 20-pound resistance, whatever you want the resistance to be. It's essentially for stability purposes, and you're wrapping that around your lead foot. And then on the other end, your opposite arm from your lead foot is your lifting arm. And so you're getting that cross stability from the band, holding it up, and you're keeping it close with one leg out, one knee down, and doing the shoulder presses from there. And it really engages that top of the shoulder all around, and definitely safer. I've couldn't be happier. I did it again this morning, actually, in my workout. I did it some of the landmine shoulder presses, and I find it to be one of it's definitely an advanced move in some aspects of it, but I find it to definitely be something where, like, all right, I did 5 sets of 10 or whatever. I'm like, wow, I'm good. My shoulders are good.
Yeah, I like the stability aspect that the band provides, as well as the increased resistance as you're pressing the weight up higher. It feels a little bit more natural that way, but you can also do it without the band if you are starting it out and want to get a feel for it. And then of course this exercise gasses me, so if you need to work on your cardio, you may find that it helps you with that.
And my gym partner today got gassed out by it too. So
Nick doesn't seem to get
a
cardio workout from this like we do, but
yeah, I'd probably get more of a cardio workout from the landmine deadlifts, but last time I did that I normally deadlift too. But regardless, definitely find for those who are looking for a shoulder press and are like us and can't get that full range of motion or don't want to hurt themselves doing a shoulder press, landmine shoulder press is definitely where it's at. And adding the bands, I think it's just I think you should start with the bands than not have the bands, because I think the bands are that much more beneficial.
So yeah, you could start with a lighter weight then. And then when you talked about the band, it also prompted me just to remember that Rusin does a lot of posts about bands and chains. So if you want to learn more about how to utilize bands and chains, he's also a good follow for that. And he sells a pair. I know Nick's got some that he found on Amazon that we can share a link to that are affordable if you're worried about that.
Yeah. And the other exercise that I liked from Rusin was the strapped front squats. And front squats, once again, for me, not easy to do because my arms and hands just don't want to cooperate. Like if you see some people, they'll have the bar just barely in their hands. And it's just, when you're getting to the heavier weights, for me, I just find that to be extremely difficult to keep doing.
Yeah, I struggle with the range of motion with my wrist, getting bent. So,
and so it's just not worth it. But I want to be able to do front squats. I want to be able to try them out and do them successfully. And so I was looking at one of the Rusin's posts, and it was with the straps. And essentially, I was just using my deadlifting straps as these straps that I wrap them around the bar, and I would use that to hold, and I wrap them around my hand and grip it for these front squats. And I got to the heavier weights, and it was perfectly fine. And I don't think you're losing out anything by switching this hand placement, and I don't think you're losing out at all. Actually, I feel like it's more beneficial. Why try to force your arms into doing something that just is not comfortable? It's just not good. Like other people cross their arms.
And that's what I do.
And try to keep
to try and compensate.
Yeah, and try to keep it right there on your chest, upper chest and neck area. And I just find that I just don't understand it. So yeah, I think the straps with the front squats, perfectly fine and perfectly acceptable. And I mean, who cares?
So basically, if you tried to do front squats and you thought you sucked at it, and it's because it just felt uncomfortable with your upper body, check this out. Obviously, we'll have that post as well in the website, and you'll be able to use straps instead to help you, and it'll make it just way more comfortable.
Yeah, I think so, 100%. All right, so the next expert on our list is Jeff Cavaliere.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, before we talk about Cavaliere, you can find John Rusin on Instagram.
It's at Dr. John Rusin.
So Dr. John.
Let me make sure that there's no dots or dashes in there. Nope, it's just at DrJohnRusin.
Mm-hmm.
And we should probably do Lee Boyce. It's at Coach Lee Boyce.
Yep, Boyce. On Instagram as well. Okay, so Jeff Cavaliere, we'll get his Instagram right out the way.
It's at AthleanX.
Mm-hmm.
AthleanX is his company, his brand, I suppose.
Yeah.
But he's really the face of it and the creator of it. And he's got a big YouTube presence as well. But
yes,
I think we noticed some exercises that he was doing on Instagram that we really appreciated. And the first two involve face pulls. Face pulls are a great exercise to get those rear delts and to build strong, stable shoulders and back. And you want to have a strong posterior chain always.
Yeah, I remember coming across him. I don't remember exactly when or where. It might have been something you had showed me, but we were just kind of looking at different types of exercises for our back and rear and delts and all that stuff, traps. And we saw a couple of these exercises that Jeff has. And Jeff has he's also a guy that I think has a lot of wealth of knowledge in trying to kind of like Coach Lee Boyce, where he does different variations.
Yeah.
And he kind of puts his own spin on certain things. And so that's kind of where these exercises come from.
I think, like Dr. John Rusin, I mean, Dr. John Rusin is a doctor of physical therapy. That's why we respect his title and refer to him in that way. Mm-hmm. And it's, I think, also why he is so great at programming in a way that is sustainable and it keeps people healthy and that helps prevent injuries or work around injuries. And that's why I really appreciate his work personally. Just the sustainability and the intelligence behind what he puts out there. Everything he does is so well thought out. But bringing it back to Jeff, I think he actually has a degree in physical therapy as well, which helps him with his applications. And
he was a sports. What was it? He was with.
Yeah, he trains a lot of athletes. I know I think he started out with baseball players.
Right.
And that he made a name for himself in that way, at least. I don't know a ton about his background. Maybe we'll get him on the show one of these days and learn more. But I think he did some work with Antonio Brown as well recently. So now he works with athletes from all across the spectrum.
Right.
And if you look at him, he's in great shape.
Dude's a beast.
Yeah. So he practices what he preaches.
Yeah. He's not afraid to get shirtless.
A lot of his programs for the general public are what you'd expect. It's the public demands, they want to lose weight and they want to build muscles and they want to look good. So he puts out a lot of programs to do just that.
Yeah.
But then he on this, obviously with his athletes and things, he might be training them a little bit differently. But yeah, as far as what I appreciated about him, I think I covered it. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, like, what we touched on there was just, like I say, he kind of adds a little bit different flavor to it, I feel like. And so I appreciate that. And I think too, he's good at communicating with his posts. His posts are a little bit different. He's sometimes a little bit more tutorial with it, where some of the other guys can be like.
So he'll do like a longer video.
Yeah,
because he's explaining what he's doing in the video.
Right, and why.
Yeah.
And then maybe even show you what the mistakes are and stuff like that. But
as opposed to just showing a demo and then writing about it.
Mm-hmm. And so some of the face pulls.
So the first one is face pulls while you're lying on the ground. So in this one, he has you lie on the ground with, in front
Face
of a cable
up.
machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, face up. And then you're grabbing the rope and you're doing your face pulls, but
your elbows are only hitting the ground. So it
so
stops there.
You're trying to get your elbows back and your hands down too. You're basically trying to touch the floor. And if you can touch both your thumbs and your elbows to the floor on every rep, he says then you're doing it right. You've got the right range of motion and everything. And then he has you pause there.
Which was definitely difficult.
Yeah, it's tough.
Even with lighter weight, it was still, just getting that full range.
If you want bulletproof shoulders, this is a real good exercise to try. And I couldn't get the elbows and thumbs back all the way, but we're working on it.
Yeah. I don't remember if I could or not, but I do remember it still being very difficult, regardless. But it was a good workout. I mean, it was a good type of difficult.
Yeah, so we'll put his link, the link to his video, let's say, instead on the site.
Yes.
So the other variation of face pulls that he demoed at one point that I also enjoyed was where it was a face pull with an overhead press.
Yes.
So he said all you need to do is throw 2 or 3 sets of these with a light weight at the end of your workout. So you do a face pull.
Mm-hmm.
Hold. Now press your arms or your hands up overhead while maintaining that pulled back position.
Yeah.
Before coming back down and then letting the weight back into the machine.
Yeah. And what's different than doing like a dumbbell press with that for like a shoulder press is that you're already pulled back as far as you can go. So it's kind of, you're just in that motion already. So you're not putting that full, I would say, seated position because you're doing these face pulls standing up, which is nice. And I think once again that added variation with the shoulder press aspect of it too. It's not really a shoulder press, but just that that upward press, I should say.
Yeah, I mean you're basically trying to resist the machine pulling you in as you're moving up too, so it's going to get harder and harder.
The stability of it too. Yep, it was good. It was definitely a fun exercise. I actually just remembered another one we're going to talk about after this one that Cavaliere showed us that we demoed as well.
Okay.
But this one was a favorite of mine. This is when I was kind of really focusing on my arms because I felt like my arms weren't where they should be. And I saw this one for the biceps. And so they're wall bicep curls. And so
he calls them the no money strict curl hold.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to call them wall bicep curls for audio's sake, but you'll see in the video. So his back's completely up against the wall. His arms are almost completely up against the wall. And he's kind of in a semi-squat position, wall squatting position. Or it might even be standing up. I forget exactly. But regardless.
He was mostly standing pretty straight. With his legs are pretty straight.
Okay. So, but the real point, the meat of this is the fact that you're doing these bicep curls and you're keeping your arms out wide so that as you're curling up, the barbell or dumbbell, the dumbbell hits the wall, and then it goes back down. And you're hitting the wall, and you're doing these in very slow motion. But the idea is to keep these arms and keep your back of your arms, your triceps on the wall, and the only thing that's moving is your elbow and your wrist and your hands. You're
just really isolating that bicep,
right?
And by also holding. What he does is he has you hold at the top portion of the rep.
Right.
Then you do the other arm. And then when that one gets to the top, then you
bring it back down.
Bring it down the other side, and you're kind of rotating. So you always have one arm being held against the wall.
Touching the wall, yep.
While contracting the bicep muscle.
Yeah, very fun. little exercise to do, especially I think that's kind of like a good finisher. I think Jeff's really good for finishers, like finding some good finisher exercises. Like it's your like
a lot of time under tension.
Yeah. Like this is your work,
isolating on a muscle.
right? Like this is your bodybuilding day. You're like, all right, I'm going arms. I'm focusing on biceps. Like this is a good biceps finisher, and it's you don't have to do heavy weight. You do lightweight and just do 20 pounds, and these wall curls are really cool for that. And our last exercise that I remember, and we did this, was our wrist forearm finishers.
Right. It's not always easy to find forearm workouts that you can do in a commercial gym.
Right.
That are isolation. Obviously you get forearm work by doing deadlifts and by farmer's carries and things like that. But if you want to isolate on your wrist and you don't have the proper machine, everyone's got this machine. I know you demoed it. I don't know if I was in there or not, but
you were the one videoing it.
Okay,
yeah.
so
so you were there.
I'm probably gonna struggle to describe it, but I don't know how much we need to. But we'll put the video on the site. Obviously, you're essentially just curling the wrist down and then controlling it as it comes back.
Yeah.
Using the cable machine.
Cable pulleys, and it's almost like you're doing that over the top Sylvester Stallone, where he's doing the arm wrestling, and you're just doing just just the arm wrestling motion, and every time you're just holding with your other hand, you're holding your forearm or the base, your elbow and forearm and all that, and it's really good, real quick. You can knock out like 3 sets of 10 of that with like 15 pounds or maybe even less, and you'll feel it in your forearms, all over, and it's really nice.
Yeah, so you need a forearm exercise, and you go to a big box gym, and you don't have great equipment, and there you go.
Yep. All right, and yeah, once again, you can find Jeff at AthleanX on Instagram.
Yeah.
Next expert,
and check him out on YouTube as well. Actually, he's got a great YouTube presence. A lot of these other guys, I'm not sure what they're doing on YouTube, if anything, but Jeff's all over.
I think they're here and there, but that is true. Jeff
has
long form really
videos,
good
really
long form videos.
Stuff.
Yep, especially they go into more depth on certain ones. I remember when I was first starting benching, I was actually watching some of his videos on helping with the cues and stuff like that. But okay, so yeah, moving on to our next guy who also has some really good videos. I think Christian Thibaudeau, another guy of T Nation.
Thibaudeau is actually, I think, the way it's pronounced. Thibaudeau. He's been another T Nation guy. Been following him for a while. He's probably in. I mean, all these guys are in our top favorite influencers. But what do we like about him?
I like the most about him. Once again, I think he does really great demo work, and he doesn't do it on himself. So he shows like people who are your average, maybe your average.
He's
gym
got like a client or whatever. In his video, and he's telling them how to do an exercise and coaching them through it.
Right. Or they'll ask him maybe like, hey, I don't know how to do this, and he'll show them right on the spot or something like that. And it kind of seems like it's really cool, queued up right there. But that's what there's a lot of good exercises, and we'll talk about one of my exercises that was on T Nation that I was following, 2 workout exercise. But you found one of your favorite moves from him.
Yeah, years ago.
Movements, I should say.
He was he might have been one of the first trainers I ever started to follow. I really appreciated how in depth he went with everything. Just a really smart guy. Does a lot of reading. He's read every training book out there, and he tries to learn from all these different trainers and then integrate them together into like a unified theory in a sense. And he has so many tools in his tool bag that he can pull out for different people. But one of the tools I picked up from him was the snatch grip high pull. This is probably one of my favorite exercises, might be my favorite exercise. I wish I did it more, really. But when I do it, I always feel great. And if I am at it consistently, it will very quickly add, I would say, strength and size to my upper body better than almost any exercise I do. Yeah, and I really feel it in my traps. It's an explosive movement where you have a wide grip and you're pulling the bar up. It's like a high pull, which if you're doing them like strict, slow, the way a lot of people do them, not good for you. But the way he coaches it and this snatch grip high pull method with an explosive movement, they're amazing. And it's
you showed them to me, and I liked them a lot. As someone who was trying to work on their trapezius area and just kind of the shoulders and a little bit,
you're getting a little bit of like, a little bit of glutes too, because that's helping you fire off right away. It's a very athletic movement.
And the grip, I mean, and then you're still getting the tries a little bit too. But yeah, it was definitely, I was trying to accentuate it more in the traps, like when I raise it up. Yeah,
because at the end of the movement, you're really using the traps with your arms up to
finish
get that. Yeah, just yank that bar up a little bit more as high as you can go before you control it back down and start up again. So we'll post a video of him demoing that exercise, and you'll get a little bit of a feel for what we're talking about with how he's good at demoing. And then I encourage you to give that exercise a try, especially if you are kind of a fast twitch person and you want to feel a burn in your traps the next day.
I think too, when he doesn't post a lot, but when he does, it's like a lot of it is just money.
Yeah.
Like they're just such good information.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah, he's definitely doing quality. One of the things you appreciate about it is the neurotyping.
Yeah, so neurotyping is something that he has been talking a lot about lately. I don't know if it's what he created, but I think he may have been the actual creator of this phrase called neurotyping and this whole theory. And this kind of gets back to where I said he reads a lot and absorbs as much as he can from all different disciplines, including like neuroscience. And so he's pulled in what he's gathered from his experience as a trainer, training all different types of people, all walks of life, athletes, non-athletes, as well as what he's learned about, let's say, psychology and neuroscience, to come up with this theory of neurotyping. So essentially what it says is that we all have different brains, and we might have different brain chemistry, and we might also have different body types. And the way that those interplay with each other will help determine what kind of exercises are going to work best for you, what you're going to adhere to, what you're going to recover from better, what's going to be really motivating for you. And he's got a test on his website. You can take the test and figure out what your neurotype is. And it may come out that, oh, you're somebody who would benefit from a lot of volume, and you're going to be very motivated by that as well. So we're going to give you volume workouts. Or it could be, you're going to be somebody that's going to want to do more frequent exercises at a like more of an explosive pace, and that'll get you jazzed up more than the volume workouts will, and you'll recover from it better, and you'll grow better from it as a result. It's essentially like a personality test that then determines what style of exercise is going to benefit you the most and that you might stick to. So it also kind of touches on some of the things that Greg was talking about, how he tries to use personality typing to help him coach people. This is taking that to a different degree.
Yeah. We'll actually have someone.
Coming up, we're actually going to have someone who's an expert on, let's call it, personality and communication, and does a lot of business coaching and leadership coaching and things like that. But we're going to have her help us establish, what these different, let's say your personality type, or the way that you kind of go about the world, or the way that you take in information, and how you might apply that to your fitness. Yeah. And I'm going to try and incorporate some of the neurotyping from Christian Thibaudeau into that episode as well, where we can. Mm-hmm. Not being an expert in it, of course.
Right.
It's his thing, but
it's definitely his thing.
I'd encourage you to check that out if you're someone who is interested in that sort of thing, or just curious about what this could even mean. It's sort of it could potentially be a breakthrough concept if it grows in popularity, and there seems to be some merit to it. His clients seem to say that there is merit to it.
And the other exercise that I found I really enjoyed, and I don't say just exercise, but it was a 2-exercise workout plan. And it's the Minimalist Guide to Getting Jacked.
That's the article.
This is the article
title that he wrote.
Yep. the 2 exercise workout plan for size. And so it was definitely something that I kind of
sounds like it started out as a thought experiment.
Yeah, it just an experiment as a whole. And I took this as like, all right, I'm going to try this out. I want to try it out, see how it works. And it's really more than just kind of 2 exercises. But the base 2 exercises is the bench press and the Zercher squat. So for people who might not know what the Zercher squat is, it hits the whole lower body just as well as the back and the front squat. But on top of that, it also works great for the traps, upper back, and biceps, because you're holding the bar in the crook of your elbows. And so you need those muscles to hold the bar properly. And then it's also one of the better exercises to build a solid core. So he had done some testing and went through all this stuff, and that's what he found out, especially was the for this hypertrophy, for the best 2 lifts for hypertrophy, he was like the bench press and the Zercher squat. And this combination gives you the best overall development, and that's why the least amount of invested time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like day 1, if you go through it, you're doing it as warm up, and then you're doing 3 preparation sets of 3 reps, and then you're doing 1 set as like your 3 rep max. Like, so you're ramping up to your 3 set max.
Of which exercise?
So week 1.
Oh, for both. So
yeah.
You're rotating.
Of day 1 is you're working up to a 3 rep max. So you're doing your Zercher squat up to a 3 rep max. You're doing a bench press, work up to a 3 rep max. And then he had exercise C and D, supinated chin up, get a total of 50 reps, take 4 to 7 reps or sets to get there. And then band pull aparts, accumulate 100 total reps. And I'll tell you, after that, like that first day when I did it, and I was getting, I think the Zercher squat, I got up to about just under 300 pounds, I think it was 275 was my 3 rep max. Just kind of messing around. I'll tell you, it hurts if you don't have padding.
I couldn't hold that much weight.
If you don't have padding in the crooks of your elbows there, it hurts.
Yeah.
And so it probably could get bigger 3 rep max, but like I didn't have the appropriate equipment. So I was like trying to use like the squat pad, and it wasn't
help to have
it wasn't long
foam
enough
pad on it or something.
Yeah, it wasn't long enough to work. But the bench press I appreciated, the chin ups I definitely appreciated, and once you get to those band pull aparts at the end and you're using that to finish your day off, I was doing like sets of 25, and then that last set at the 4th set I was like 20 and 5. I was like I can't do it. But yeah, and then you're doing eccentric. Day 2 was like eccentric emphasis. So like the typical week for this would be like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So you're doing 4 days. And you're doing 4 sets of 4 to 6 reps with a 40-10 tempo. And same thing, Zercher squat, bench press, and then you're doing dips and then band triceps pull downs. You're doing, the next day you're doing the isometric emphasis. So now you're doing with the 3-second pause at mid-range, and then so on and so forth. We'll have the link to the article, but
how long were the workouts?
Not very long. I mean, I was able to do if
in and out.
If no one was playing around like on the rack or anything like that at the big box gym we visit, I'm able to get it done within 45 minutes pretty much. It depends on like what that 3rd or 4th exercise might be. If I'm doing the chin ups, like that takes me a bit longer because I'm not as strong on chin ups as I'd like to be, but the band pull aparts I'm fine. So it is what it is. But yeah, it's definitely got a lot of good stuff. I definitely highly recommend you check it out. And the other part of that with the bench press, and so I've been trying, and this kind of goes back to Lee Boyce a little bit, and with Thibaudeau here is I've been trying to like master my bench press because I was never a really good bench presser, and so I struggled, and for years I just gave up on it, didn't care, and then I said, you know what, I'm not gonna let this beat me. And so with the bench press, what I saw some cues here from Lee Boyce, and I've seen cues from others, there's legs and glutes and back and lats and shoulders, like all these play an important factor into the bench press more than just your arms. And so
yeah, it should be if you're doing it for power, it should be a full body workout.
Right. And so when I was trying to do these 2 moves, these 2 different exercises as the weight, to get my 3-rep max. I was looking at like this recent video by Coach Boyce, and I was like, oh man, this is kind of like a little bit better to get myself engaged, get the other muscles I feel like I was missing from my bench press involved in my bench press. And a couple of them is just you're kind of rounding out your bench press. You're not going that full up and down. You're kind of rotating it down a little bit to hit your nips, or whatever, the lower part of your pecs, which I think is something that I don't see a lot of lifters do, and I know that's not good for your shoulders. So it's better to get that more rounded for your shoulders. Another part is, squeezing your back, and I mean, like I said, they explain it way better than I do. But Coach Boyce, his bench press, Thibaudeau's bench press, some of these guys have really good cues to learn from, and Cavaliere has a couple good demos of bench pressing that I feel like you should definitely check out.
Yeah, agreed. And with Thibaudeau, I'll also include, I was reading a couple articles of his recently where he was describing like different workouts that might work for different types of people, and in one of the workouts one of the articles, he was emphasizing that if you're a natural lifter, that you need to be careful about volume, but you also need to try and work on the compound movements multiple times a week, and do it in a way that's sustainable and that you can recover from, of course. But the concept is to get in more workouts. Don't necessarily kill yourself in every single one. That way you can get more of them in, so that by the end of the week, you've worked every muscle group like 3 times. And so I think that's helpful for a lot of people to hear, because they might be doing more of a bodybuilder style split where they're doing like one body part a day and absolutely thrashing it, and maybe not seeing the results that they want to see. And it might be because you're not on gear, as they call it in the bodybuilding world.
Exactly.
That's steroids, by the way, in case you didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. All right, so our next expert, well, at least a workout plan. We'll just kind of talk about this workout plan. This goes back to kind of my bench press thing. And so for me, I'm trying to get over my plateau. I've been hitting about 250 to 275 pretty consistently, and I can't seem to get over that plateau. And then some of it's my inconsistencies where I'm doing other things, so I'm not always on the gym, or whatever the case may be. But so what I've been trying to use more recently is the Eric Bach approach, which is the rest pause training sets. And so it's a really, like, if you're having a good day at the gym and you want to, you're really trying to get over the hump, I kind of highly recommend this. It's not, you're doing your warm up. And so say if your 1 rep max is 315, you're doing a warm-up of 65% of your 1 rep max at 5, then you're going to 70, then you're going to 80 at 3 reps, and then you're going 85% 1 rep. And then you're doing your rest pause set. And so once again, sticking at that 315, your rest pause set is at 270, and you're going to do 5 reps, but you're going to rest 15 to 30 seconds. Then you're going to do 1 to 3 reps, rest 15 to 30 seconds, 1 to 2 reps, rest 15 to 30 seconds, and then do 1 to 2 reps or as many reps until you can double that rep goal. And it's, I'm on fire. And it's like today I struggled. I couldn't even get through it. I couldn't even get to that 3rd set after the rest pause because I was just so burnt out, and because I'm not being consistent. But it's I've definitely noticed I've been able to get those first 2 prior a lot better, and that I think that's definitely been an improvement for someone like me who's looking to improve just one workout. It's not my goal is 3 plates. I wouldn't say that it's like one of those like vanity goals. It's just I feel like that's what I want to be at, and there's other muscles I got to work on to get there. But, you still got to keep trying at it, the bench press. So Eric Bach, we'll have a link for his article. Now the next article expert is Ellington Darden.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about Ellington Darden other than he's been in the game for a while. He wrote a bunch of Nautilus books, and I believe he's a doctor, actually. So we should call him Dr. Ellington Darden. And he was known for his high-intensity interval training workouts, I think. But the reason we wanted to mention him is since we're talking about things that we've liked, things that we found were interesting or worked for us for a period, or just tools that we are going to reference back to, is I saw an article from him called 30-10-30 Training. And this was a T-Nation article. And the concept is you're basically doing negatives or eccentric training. So let's use the bicep curl as an example. When you start with the dumbbell at your side and you lift it up, that's a concentric, and that's the positive. And then when you set the weight back down, that's your negative or your eccentric. So you're focused on the negative portion in this training approach. And the reason that it intrigued me is because he said this is a workout that you only do once a week. He said, don't assume that doing this workout 2 or 3 times a week will make it better. It might make it worse because negatives are harder to recover from. And then so you might think like, well, why would you be crazy enough to try something like that? For a while, I was very busy and I was doing a lot of traveling, and I just felt like I couldn't get to the gym consistently 3-4 times a week the way I wanted to. So if I could only get there 1, 2, 3 times a week, at least one of those days, I would focus on this 30-10-30 exercise technique where it's, he says the first rep is a 30-second negative. So you're trying to lower the bar for a count of about 30 seconds. Then immediately followed by 10 regular reps where you're kind of like 1 second up, 2 seconds down. And then the final rep, so this would be like your 12th rep after the first one was a 30-second negative and the next ones were regular. Your final rep is another 30-second negative. And he said, you don't have to necessarily hit those numbers exactly, but the entire set should take about 90 seconds, and 70 seconds of it being the negative portion. And, if you could only manage, 25 seconds and then 9 reps and then another 25 seconds. All right, great. Mark that down. Maybe the next time you do it, you got to lighten the load or something to hit the 30-10-30, but you don't have to be too super strict about it. And it's a full body workout. So it's 8 exercises. He starts out with the leg curl, barbell squat, calf raises, lat pull downs, then barbell bench press, barbell curl, barbell overhead press, and the barbell reverse curl. That's the 8 exercises that you do. You do them all with the 30-10-30, and that's your workout once a week. If you're going to add anything else on top, maybe it's a sport, maybe it's accessory movements, whatever. But I tried that for, I don't know, maybe a month. So I might have only done the workout 4 or 5 times. But it was during a period of my life when I was real busy and I wasn't getting to the gym as much as I thought I would, or as much as I would want to, let's say. And so if you're ever finding yourself in a position like that, it may be worth looking up this workout or focusing on that negative, that eccentric portion of training. Harder to recover from, but that means you don't need as many sessions to get some benefit. So there you go.
There you go. All right. Well, getting rounded up here. Couple shout outs to a couple other people that we follow. First one is going to be Katie Crew. She's out of Toronto as well. And she has a lot of good workouts. You see her kind of do them in different like sections of her posts. So she'll show you one part and then move on to the next. And so she does a lot of, I would say, just back to back workouts, it seems. For her, I guess, for different days. And so one of the workouts that we thought was really cool was her recent birthday workout. and it started out with your half body weight goblet squats, and you're doing 25 of these, and it leads then to 25 push-ups, 25 kettlebell swings, 25 chin-ups banded, and then 100 seconds of a weighted plank. And for someone who's just looking to maybe spice it up in the gym, or maybe try something different, or whatever the case may be, try a workout like that. And Katie has other ones that she does that you can kind of look and peruse through, but for that one specifically, I like this because these are stuff that I can do at home with like my kettlebells and
That's what I was thinking.
And body weights and stuff like that. So I might not have a half weight or half my body weight kettlebell or anything like that lugging around at the gym, but I can still use my kettlebells to do some goblet squats and just up the volume on it. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, so I guess if you're we've gotten a couple questions from people about what they can do at home. So if you're looking for inspiration, you'll see that post in our on our website under the article that we referenced earlier.
Yeah, especially if you're somebody like us too who works at home or might work at home instead of works remote or whatever, and you just want to be like, all right, I got to get up at lunchtime, let me work up an appetite real quick. Doing something like this might take you 10-15 minutes, but it's not very difficult in that sense of like where you need a whole gym to work out.
And let's talk a little bit more about Katie. So she's actually a CSCS certified coach. The other thing that I think is interesting about her and why she might be worth the follow is she also has some videos about food and nutrition, cooking in particular. She's got on a separate account, I think it's called Crew's Kitchen, where she'll do like cooking tutorials or show you how to make whatever meal, like a healthy meal. So trying to integrate the fitness and the nutrition. And you want to get it from one person who is clearly in great shape herself and walks the walk. Worth checking out.
Definitely.
And that kind of we'll round it out with one more person. It kind of leads us into the next guy because I found out about Katie Crew from Dr. Jacob Harden, who
friend of the show.
Yeah, who we were fortunate enough to talk to a couple months ago. So the big idea that we wanted to give him a shout out for was the rate of perceived exertion is what it's technically called, RPE, but in layman's terms, it's essentially the concept of, working out so that you get to like, maybe a 7 or 8 out of a 10 instead of working yourself out to a 10 out of a 10 all the time, because you can't necessarily recover from that. And then that's going to make you inconsistent. You might lose motivation.
And you can listen to that podcast because he explains it way better than we ever will. And
yeah, but what I've taken from it is just like, we were just at the gym the other day and this happened. I was like, this is like my 5th day in a row at the gym. We're on our exercises and I'm starting to slow down, and it's like, normally I would have kept going, and I was like, turned to Nick and said, hey, I think it'd be better if I left now than if I kept going.
Call it a day.
Exactly. So that's why I know I can come back to the gym in a day or two and be ready to rock and roll.
And a little bit more in depth into it is, if you know that, like, this is your 5th day, you've had a long work week, whatever the case may be, knowing that about yourself.
I had been traveling again.
And knowing that about yourself, you attack your weights or you attack your routine differently. Right. So you attack it at a 6. You're like, all right, well, normally I do this at 150 pounds. I'm doing it at 100, 115, whatever the case may be. If I want to do it at an 8, all right, I'm doing 80%, give or take. You know what I mean? So whatever the case may be is, and how he explains it. He's
right. I scaled the weights back a little bit from what I know I'm normally capable of if I'm at my best. And then the other thing is even in the middle of a set, you're thinking to yourself, oh, I want to hit 10 reps or whatever. I mean, it's, in a sense, it's even if it's been pre-programmed, it's still in a sense sort of arbitrary, because it doesn't take into account all the factors that lead you to that moment of that day, your stress, your day, what's been going on, whether you're sick, whether, what you ate, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that piece of paper might say, in an ideal world, this is what you should do, but you can't necessarily do it in that moment. So instead of forcing myself to 10 reps where I'm going to put in a 9 or 10 effort to get to those 10 reps, hey, I just stop at like 7th rep. Okay, cut it out. And then the next set, I do the same thing.
Or and or voice.
No, I have a couple left in the tank.
Or yeah, exactly. You know that you had a couple left in the tank, but you're good. You're not in a rush. You're just living your best life.
And in the long term, that's going to benefit me because I'm going to be able to keep getting more workouts in.
Exactly. And
recover from them.
Why we like Dr. Jacob Harden? Well, his podcast speaks for himself, and we're going to go interview him again next month. So look out for that.
Yeah, so we'll put a link to that episode in this post too, in case you hadn't caught it. And it's a half-hour amazing piece of content. So give it a listen.
Exactly.
And that I think that wraps us up for now for today.
This has been the HeroFit podcast with Nick and Dan.
Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. And if you didn't, that sounds like a you problem. And if you did, which you probably did, why don't you subscribe?
You should. You should subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, please.
We'll give you a second to do it.
Right.
Pull out your phone, figure out what app you're in, find that subscribe button, and tap it.
Yes.
Perfect.
However you found this podcast, if you haven't already subscribe. And if you like this podcast or you like any of our podcasts, please share it with a friend. All your friends. Find friends to share it with.
Yeah. I mean,
family.
If you don't have any friends,
just
find some random people on the street.
And talk to them about fitness.
Just shove the earbud in their ear and make them listen.
Yeah. You wanted to pick up this girl at the gym and you didn't know how to open up with this really
Have you listened
podcast.
to the HeroFit podcast? It's amazing. Now you're going to walk away with a phone number.
That's right. We're matchmaking. We're helping you with your fitness and nutrition. That's what this podcast is all about. We're making you better. Hopefully. I'd like to believe so.
And if you're more of an introvert, all right, that's fine. Whatever, remember that app that you just subscribed on? There's a share button. You just tap that share button, open up the text messages, find the first person in your phone, send it off.
Or, just spread it around Reddit. Create a fake profile, whatever you got to do.
Right, because, you might want to get your clout. You might damage your clout, I guess, if you're spamming with the link. So we're fine with you just creating new Reddit accounts and constantly
all the accounts
blasting it out.
Exactly. Well, I
have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to Reddit, actually.
Yeah, I do, and
I know you're supposed to have clout before you promote things, right?
It helps to have a little bit. Yeah. You just it's just like Quora. You want to make educated answers, give educated answers and responses and all this stuff.
Like Quora. I see.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a great idea. Make a Quora answer that involves podcast episodes that we've done.
Mm-hmm. We
appreciate that.
Yeah, because we also should be doing that.
We are only 2 people. We can only do so much.
We only can do so
We need our army of heroes out there.
Yeah, we need our
contributing.
Our hero fitters out there to help us out.
How many people do you think are still listening at this point?
2. My mom? No, I'm just kidding. All right.
If you made it this far, comment on our Instagram post and let us know.
Thank you. All right. For Dan, I am Nick. Check us out next time. Tuesdays, 4 a.m. That's when these podcasts drop. Share, subscribe, and, if you have a topic that you want us to cover, let us know as well.
Sounds good.
Please do. Look out for future episodes. Till then, keep it classy.
Later.
This has been another episode of the HeroFit podcast, making humans great again, one podcast at a time.